Hey everyone! So last year I put together a list of my 2022 garden resolutions, and I thought it would be fun to continue the tradition for 2023. But also I have the list of my 2022 resolutions, and I thought it would also be fun to go through and see if I actually stuck to them, which I think for the most part I did. So I'll go over kind of what I wanted to accomplish in 2022 on my list. Then we'll go into my plans for 2023, and then whatever your garden resolutions are for the next year, this year, put them down in the comments below as well. All right, so looking at 2022, I have my list here. My first goal was to get drip set up to almost all of my containers, which I did. So I think the previous year I had drip set up just to the main raised beds. And then this year I got a lot more drip set up to the smaller pots. That was especially helpful for my herb garden because I think those were my smallest pots in the garden. So they obviously dried out a lot faster. And I had so many more of them in 2022 that now it's nice to have the drip system that was set up because anytime we were out of town, I know those plants were getting watered. Also, I would sometimes have to come out multiple times a day to water them because in the very severe heat during the summer, they would dry out really quickly, but it was nice to know that they were getting the regular drinks in the morning every day. So that was incredibly helpful last year, and I am very glad I got that set up. Next was to grow more flowers and herbs, which I definitely accomplished. I even maybe went a bit too far away from my fruit and veg and way too much into the herbs and flowers. Although I'm definitely gonna grow about the same amount of herbs, just probably not as many varieties, more of the ones that I really liked, less of the ones that I didn't really enjoy as much because I think I had 14 or 15 pots and I don't think I have space for any more than that in my garden. And then flowers, this is where it's gonna be really hard because I had so many flowers that I really, really loved next year, but I definitely didn't have mostly as many vegetables as I had. And I did find myself missing that in the garden for 2022. I think I had 2 tomato plants versus maybe 3. I didn't have zucchini or cucumber or cucamelon. I only had 1 cantaloupe plant. Last year I had a couple more. So it's trying to find that balance of the space that I have to have the amount of flowers and vegetables that I want in my garden. But I did grow a lot more flowers this year. Next on my 2022 resolutions list was try 1 new flower and 1 new vegetable variety. Okay, so definitely succeeded with the flowers. Like I said, I did straw flowers, which were new to me. I did more varieties of zinnia, so I don't know if that technically counts, but definitely a lot more varieties, so it was nice to kind of figure out the ones that I liked and the ones I didn't. Was sunflowers new this year? Sunflowers might have been new this year also. So a lot of new flowers. I actually don't know if I did any new vegetables because I did 2 cherry tomato plants. What else did I have? An eggplant. I mean, it was a patio eggplant instead of a full eggplant. But yeah, I kind of dropped the ball on trying the new vegetables for this year. So maybe that'll be on 2023's list. Next on my list was get a compost bin, which I did. So that's exciting. I have my little tumbler composter. Again, I think I'm doing it correctly. I actually haven't emptied it out yet. It's still sitting out there in the middle of winter. I try to remember to turn it. So we'll figure that out next year. I was actually thinking this past weekend, how exactly do I empty it once it's ready? But we'll see. I think it's working successfully. Things are breaking down. It smells like nice compost. But yeah, I was really excited to finally have that in the garden because it's so much nicer to be able to throw my garden waste into that instead of having to take it all downstairs and bag it up. I still have to do that because my composter isn't large enough to take all of my garden waste, but it was nice to finally have that in the garden. Next was invest in better quality gardening tools, plus do better maintenance. I think I did fine on the maintenance. I didn't get better quality gardening tools until the end of the season. So I had Amazon tools, like a bag. It was a garden bag that came with a bunch of tools. They were really pretty, floral printed tools. But I don't have hard soil in these containers because it's all potting soil. And handles would break off. I'd have to super glue them back together. So I did finally start investing in some better quality tools. I got a fork because that's actually what I use the most to kind of break through the older soil from the brand DeWitt. And that's the first handheld tool that I got from them. And I immediately could tell the difference in the quality. I think I also got a small shovel, again, just a few months ago. I don't know how many extra tools I really need, but I know now that when I get tools, I want to invest in something that's better quality, even if it does cost a little bit more, because I know it's gonna last longer, and hopefully I'm not gonna have to super glue it together. Also pruners. I did get a better pruner. I think I have a couple pruners now that just are a lot better quality than the original one that I got. So the tools that I need, which luckily again aren't that many, I should probably invest a little bit more in. Next was to treat more regularly for bloodworm prevention. I don't know if I did more regularly. I think that was like a lofty goal, and maybe I started at the beginning, but bloodworms still definitely came and took out my super petunias, but it wasn't until much later in the season. So I'm going to assume that maybe I did a better job of keeping up on it. That's, again, something I have to do next year because I'm planning to have the super petunias every year in my garden as long as I can find them. Next was create flower bouquets to give away to neighbors. So I actually didn't do this. I gave a lot away to friends. I'd have them come over, bring a vase, and cut flowers from the garden. But as many additional flowers as I grew, it still really wasn't enough to make the volume of bouquets that I had hoped for. I mean, if I'd gone like really, really tiny and maybe just like 3 or 4 flowers, but I was hoping to make like slightly larger bouquets than that. And it is just crazy that like, for as much as my garden was filled with flowers, there wasn't really enough. So now that I've added more beds to the back deck, hopefully I can do that again this year. I also definitely want to continue giving them away to friends as well. Next was make my own tea blends, and kind of doing that, I think. So I definitely have a lot more herbs now. I was originally going to mix them all together, like if I really liked combining 3 together in a tea, but I don't want to have a giant container of all of them mixed together. I'd rather have my containers of herbs separately and then mix them as I make my tea drinks. But yeah, I've saved a lot more herbs and I'm making a lot more teas, and that makes me really happy. The next one was to become more involved with local garden-related nonprofits. And again, I think I did. I don't even remember that I'd written this down as my goal. I think it more just kind of naturally happened. Still not as much as I would have liked though. So some of the things I've done is, this has all mostly been through, there's 2 accounts, but they're run by the same person. So Plants Delivered Chicago is a for-profit plant delivery company, but then he also runs Feeding People Through Plants, which is the nonprofit. So he'll post a lot of events on his Instagram, and that's how I found out about a community garden that is downtown, a little bit south of downtown, and I went there and we helped kind of clean it up. I'm trying to remember everything they told me. It used to be owned by a neighbor. I think it's just kind of been sitting there the last couple of years, but half of the garden is for the community. Half of the garden is for the school across the street. So next year they definitely want to get more into getting things set up for the kids. So next year I'm planning to grow or start a lot of seeds, knowing I can't fit everything in there, and then donate some of the plant starts and hopefully get back down there in the spring and get things set up. So I have to build raised beds last summer. I think it was. I don't think it was spring. I think it was later than that. They had another day in fall that we had to miss because we were out of town. But yeah, any volunteering events like that, would love to go down to. Also, Andy, who runs Feeding People Through Plants, is doing a lot to help people who are homeless stay warm through the winter. So we've been donating to him and his organization, and just feels really nice to connect with people who are making such an impact and being able to support them in any way possible. So yeah, I don't even think I kind of had that in the back of my mind. It just kind of happened with interacting through people through Instagram. And I think that was everything I had for 2022. Now, let me pull up my list for 2023. Okay, now some of this is going to be a little bit of overlap because either if I didn't do something last year, I want to do it this year, or I'm expanding upon some things from last year. But first is to create my more formal back garden. Now I say formal because in my head, I want to try to stay, like laughing as I say this, I'm going to try to stay away from a bunch of random pots and kind of keep like larger plants and structures back there. So I have the 3 raised beds. I want to get some larger square pots as well. But I want to kind of try to avoid what's happening on the front deck where I do have a bunch of grow bags and a bunch of pots, just because you know, that requires more drip systems set up. I kind of have things like strewn about. I want my back garden to feel a bit more formal, so maybe not even having like fruit or veg back there, just having a bunch of flowers, potentially some trees back there, and making it a little bit easier to maintain. But again, as I say this, I feel like both the back and the front are gonna end up looking very similar, but either way, I know it's gonna make me happy having plants back there as well, and I can definitely use the extra space. Next is to plant some evergreens. So I got one evergreen that's maybe about 3 feet tall that's currently sitting on our front stoop. In fact, I should probably move that in case it gets too cold and kills it. But it's in a container, in a pot. My plan next year is to get, again, like I mentioned, one of those larger square planters, maybe that kind of match the raised beds that I have back there, and plant them in there. I want to get another one and plant it on the other corner, just to again give it some structure. I would love to have more greenery on the decks in the winter. I mean, it's not like I'm outside, but you know, in my office, I can see out this deck, although I don't plan on having any greenery there, the front deck. But the back deck, I think it would be nice just to be able to look out and see some green back there, because it is just so gray in Chicago in the winter, except for behind me inside, which is why I have houseplants everywhere. So yeah, I want to try to plant some more evergreens back there and see how they do. Next was plant more edibles, because again, I kind of went a little bit too flower crazy this year. Although again, like I said, I want to have as many flowers, but also try to find ways to add more vegetables back in. So I definitely missed having a zucchini and a cucumber. I'm still gonna have an eggplant. I need 2 cherry tomato plants. I think that's a good amount of production for tomatoes for a household of 2. I might try 2 melon plants. 2021, I went with 8, that was too much. Last year I went with 1, that was too little. So I'm gonna try to do maybe 2 melon plants. I also got some corn seeds, and I don't know if that's gonna work. It was kind of an impulse, but I know that you have to plant enough so that they can fertilize each other and actually produce corn, but I don't know if I have the space for all that. Like, I don't know at all where I'm going to fit it. So yeah, we'll kind of see. The plan is though for more edibles. I still have my raspberry bushes, assuming all this survives the winter, my blueberries, strawberries. I would love to get a fruit tree. Maybe 2023 will be the year of a fruit tree. I don't know. I want to find a mini one, but we'll see. But yeah, I definitely want to have more edibles added back into the garden, because I did find myself missing that a little bit, as much as I love having all the flowers out there. Next is to add more plants to the parkway. So again, this is the area between the street and the sidewalk. I showed that I just recently got the auger. So I'm hoping if I can figure out how to use the auger without injuring myself, then I can just make the parkway look even more abundant with flowers. When we first moved in, there were boxwoods all the way around, and half of them were dying. It seems like, well, it's really weird, because in the little front strip in front of our house, there's also boxwoods, and those are fine. But all the ones in the parkway were dying. Same thing with the neighbors. It seems like boxwoods aren't the easiest to keep alive, so I want to do low maintenance plants and just add a bunch more to the front, because no one can see my gardens walking by. So I want to make it a little bit happier for people walking on the sidewalk with as many plants as I can fit there. It is also, I'd say, like a part to full shade situation. So if there's any fun plants that you know, more colorful the better, that would work well in a shadier environment, let me know. It's also like right underneath trees. So if there's any plants that like that, let me know also. Next on my list is to get almost everything set up on drip. So like I said, for 2022, I did a really good job of that. I've only had drip in the front, but now that I'm having more plants in the back, that means I need to get the drip set up there as well. So I might need to even get some more drip kits. I think I now have like 2. Can you hear my cat? I'll let her in 1 second. Come on, come on. Sometimes I think she just wants to yell. She doesn't even really want to be pet or like given attention to. Like now I'm trying to pet her and she's running away, but she just needs me to know that she is here. Hi, Penelope. Okay, well, I'll just pet her while I continue. But as I was saying, I had 2 drip systems up front. I have now 2, so I have the Proven Winners kit up front. I have the Carpathian system, which I think is stored. I don't know if I'm gonna do like all the Proven Winner kit in one garden, Carpathian in the other. There's some instances, like for example, I like the Proven Winners system more for smaller pots because it is just a small drip, whereas I like Carpathian more for larger containers on my raised beds, even though it's not in my raised beds, but it will be on the back because those spray more than just drip, so it can cover more area of soil. So I had to figure all that out. I might even like start from the beginning again, which is, I don't know, I like to say it seems overwhelming, but then at the same time, I know every time I start, it really doesn't take that long to get everything set up, especially now that I am more familiar with the 2 drip system. So yeah, basically 2023, get everything restructured and set up on drip, both front and back. Next is to throw a garden party. So like I said, I had some friends over individually to pick some flowers, but I want to have like an actual garden party, maybe sometime in August, because that's when everything is most abundant. August, maybe early September. We'll kind of see how it plays out, but I want to make it an annual thing. So I want to have my friends, their kids come over, everyone will bring vases, we'll have like finger foods and tea, maybe teas that are made with herbs from my garden. But I really want to make this like a really fun event that we can do every year. So I'm excited about that, especially because I think the rooms will be painted and I'll have a better setup to host people here. So yeah, that'll be really exciting. I need a good name for the garden party. Let me know if you can think of one. Next is going to be send fun mail for adults. So I follow Humans of New York on Instagram, and there was, if you're not familiar, they basically take a photo of somebody on the street and then add a quote. Sometimes it's a like multi-post story. But this one was a girl that was maybe like somewhere between the ages of 10 to 12 and just said how adult mail is no fun. I think I already talked about this, but basically said adult mail is no fun because it's just stuff you have to do or bills you have to pay. So I want to like randomly pick some people and send like fun mail. So send seeds, send other garden related things or plant related things, and like decorate the envelopes with dried flowers, because I think it'll be nice to get some mail as an adult that again isn't a bill that you have to pay. I feel like there's cat hair flying all around me, so sorry if you can see that. Next is to press a bunch more flowers, and I wrote out bunch in all capital letters. That is because I think for the most part, all I pressed this year were pansies and some leaves. And I didn't get the flower press until maybe halfway through the summer, but I love it. I have been putting dried flowers on almost everything I can find. On cards, on envelopes. I'm gonna make some name tags that I'll show you when I do that, or like gift tags with the dried flowers on them. I absolutely love them. So I want to press even more next year so that I just have more to work with, because as much as I've pressed, I mean, I'm going through them very quickly. So yeah, definitely pressing a lot more flowers and a lot more different types of flowers. Next is to spend more time relaxing in the garden. This was something I feel like I was better at in previous years than last year. And I don't know what it was, but every time I would be out in the garden, it would be because I was doing work in the garden and I wasn't relaxing as much. And I think a big part of this too is, so in the front garden, I just have a table and 2 chairs, whereas on the back we have like the small love seat and a chair, a little bit more comfortable. So anytime I did spend outside, that was my cat. Anytime I did spend outside was mostly in the back. And again, I had some plants, but it really didn't feel like a garden. But yeah, I just want to make the effort to spend time outside, not doing any garden work. But it's hard because I'll go outside to read a book and then I'll see something that needs to be done. So I'll go do that instead. And then it's an hour that's passed and I realized I haven't read my book. The sun is setting and I have to go back in, which actually, maybe I'll add that to my list to get some lighting out here. Right now there's a light like on the wall when you go outside, but it doesn't really illuminate the space enough. So maybe I need to look into like some solar spotlights or just some other lighting, like string lights out there, so I can stay out later in the evening and enjoy myself. So yeah, that is my plan for next year, is just enjoy the garden a bit more. Don't just work every time I'm out there. And then, so 2 more. Next is to get some professional photos of my garden done. I don't know if this seems weird or not, but I wish I had just, I mean, every photo I take for Instagram is obviously just on my iPhone, which the iPhone quality is great, much better than obviously even just a few years ago, but I feel like it's not the same. I don't have a photographer's eye. I don't think I can do justice to what somebody who is professional could do. And I would also love to get like pictures of like me and my husband in the garden, maybe some of my friends. I could coordinate it that way. But I want to have more like beautiful photos of my garden to save, maybe even like get blown up and frame. I think that would be really pretty. And I do have some friends that are photographers, so I would love to be able to reach out to them and say like, hey, can I pay you to come over and take some photos of my garden? Again, probably in like late August, early September, when everything is really full and really beautiful. So yeah, I hope that I can make that happen this year. And then my last resolution is to start a horticulture certification course, which I've already signed up for. It starts in a couple weeks and I'm really excited. So it's through the University of Illinois, and it's all online. I think there is an in-person version, but U of I is in, I think it's Champaign. I'm in Chicago. I would not be driving there every day or every time I had a class. I'm just starting with 2 this first semester to see kind of how it goes, but I'm really excited. I always loved being in school. I love learning. I do think you can learn a lot, like not going through a course. I mean, I've learned so much from gardening just online through articles and YouTube videos, but I do think there is something nice too about having the structure of a course. So the 2 courses I'm signed up for starting off is like the intro course, intro to horticulture, and then a course on kids and nature and how nature impacts children. So I'm really excited for that one. But yeah, I loved being in school. I almost wish though, because I kind of feel like when you're 18 to 22, which was when I was in college at Indiana University, I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I went to business school because people said you can get a job if you go to business school, majored in marketing. I still do marketing and I enjoy it, but I definitely wasn't doing it because that was my passion. And if, you know, I'd gone to school in my 30s, I would know more about myself and what my passions are. So I don't know if I plan to make like any career changes with this, but it would be nice to have, just in case I maybe do want to do either some part-time work, maybe potentially full-time work, and something that requires more knowledge in horticulture. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm like excited to have a class and take exams. I don't know if that sounds weird, but just to learn a lot more than I already know, which is a ton, because I don't really know the underlying like why things happen in the garden and in nature. Like I know kind of what the effects are, but I don't know why it's all happening. So I'd love to learn more about that. But yeah, that is my list of resolutions for 2023. So let me know what your plans are for this year, what your goals are, and then I will see you all in the next video.